Alright, so one of the most common questions asked by people who want to go to Japan or Asia in general and plan to work, get a job, and try to start a life for themselves is, what is it actually like teaching English in Japan? And the short answer to that is that well, at least by Western standards, it's one of the worst jobs you can get. First of all, being a teacher, spending your day with little kids, that's not something a lot of people can do. Especially, I find men have a harder time doing this. I don't know, call it a gender stereotype or gender role, but that's just the way it is. I find a lot of guys don't want to play with kids and act like a goofball. And with teaching English abroad, acting like a goofball is a pretty big part of the job, because these kids can't understand anything you're saying. So you have to at least look interesting and act interesting, so that even though they don't understand what you're saying, they can see your mannerisms, so they can feel your energy. So oftentimes you're in the role of acting like a clown. And some guys can do this, but you'll find the majority cannot or don't feel comfortable doing it. Especially not for the amount of money that they pay, which is quite low. If you're an American, for example, and you were to compare the payment of an English teacher to, someone working at McDonald's or Walmart, you'll find that the payment's pretty close. Working as an English teacher, you get about $2,000 US a month to $2,500 US a month. $2,000 US a month is more what you should expect starting out. And this is working 45 hours a week or more. And I say 45 hours a week because they'll give you a 1-hour lunch break, and they don't include it in your salary. But oftentimes you have to do work during that lunch break. They'll ask you to talk to a parent during this time, or talk to a coworker, or go to a meeting. There's always some extra thing you have to do. So you're not really just uninterrupted eating lunch. Oftentimes you are doing something that you don't want to be doing. And the way I see it, even if you're alone and you're eating lunch interrupted, you should be paid for your time, not for the amount of time you're working. If you're away from home, if you can't hang out with your buddies, if you can't be drinking, that's time that you should be paid for. That's just how I see it. I don't want to be at some school for 5 hours a week just sitting there. There's a lot of other things I'd like to be doing with my life, but I'm kind of straying here. But that's something you should expect. So really, 45 hours a week you're working, and you're getting about $2,000, $2,500 a month. I used to work at Walmart. I used to work at a restaurant, and I've worked jobs for security. These jobs are all kind of considered low-wage jobs in America, and they're jobs that don't require any kind of degree, just high school. So you're getting paid the equivalent of what a high school graduate would get paid, except you're teaching, right? Think about that, because in America, to be a teacher, generally you need a master's degree. And these days, at college, you need a higher degree than a master's, maybe a doctoral degree or PhD. So you're doing jobs that a master's graduate would be doing in Japan. And you're doing it to kids who can't speak your language. And you're doing it in a totally foreign environment. I'll just say it. Being an English teacher abroad is way harder than being a teacher in your own country. And you're paid less for it. And you're really underappreciated. What I mean by that is English teachers are not really looked at as like a respectable career in Japan or foreign countries. It's like they know it's like the minimum. They know it's like something that any foreigner pretty much can do. It really takes no skill to do it in their eyes. In the eyes of a Japanese person, all you have to do is just, speak your own mother tongue and you can do it. And it's really not true. When I first started teaching English, I started in China, northern China. And I was very surprised of just how difficult it is. And I was surprised that, you could do this job without a college degree or, a special training. Like, you get training in teaching English, but it's like a couple days. It's basically just what to do, what not to do. But really, there are a lot more jobs out there that require specialized training. And, maybe it's not as difficult to do as teaching English. So, that's another thing. I mean, you should probably, for your own sanity, enroll in some kind of TEFL course, teaching English as a foreign language. They have TEFL courses. You should enroll in that and get a degree if you do plan to teach English in Japan, because it'll really give you an idea of what you're in for, and it'll somewhat prepare you. It'll give you that last chance of, is this what I really want to do with my life? And that's another thing. People who come to Japan to teach English, most of them do not last very long. Either they seek a different career and they find it, or they quit. And because of this, a lot of foreigners are having hard times getting work visas in Japan, because so many foreigners will break contract or leave. I think I said in the past video, about 90% of foreigners that come here leave within a year. And most contracts are 1 year or 2 years long. So it's common that foreigners break contract. And now a lot of Japanese employers choose to hire people from the Philippines. And I can understand the reasoning and things like that. But anyways, another thing to think about if you want to teach English here is that it's hard to have a social life when you teach English in Japan. Now, if you have an ALT job, which is kind of like the normal teaching hours, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, like this, then you can have a social life. But if you're in Eikaiwas, their social life is pretty insignificant, because you have to work when people are getting out of work. You're home when people are at work. And they often make you work on the weekends, which is, for most Japanese people, when they have free time. So if you're in Eikaiwa, it's going to be hard to have friends or a girlfriend. So a lot of Eikaiwas hang out with other Eikaiwa teachers, because there's not many other people out there that are off when you're off. So these are complaints that I have. I'm sure there's more, but these are kind of like the biggest ones to think about. There's always going to be minor complaints with any job you take, but teaching English is really not a good job. And you notice that there are a lot of people who have been living here for years and years and years and most of them found a way to find a job outside of teaching English. Like maybe they boosted their Japanese ability and found a different job where they don't need to just be a guy who speaks English. And when you can learn Japanese, there's a whole lot more jobs open for you beyond just teaching English that are way better. But the problem is that maybe they don't pay as well. Now, English teaching is by no means the worst paying job, but it's far from the best. And if you teach, for example, in America, teaching in America is a pretty respectable job. You can retire earning over 6 figures. You can retire earning over $100,000 a year. Keep in mind, you have entire summers off. You have July and August and some of June off. Another thing to compare the two is that in Japanese, you don't have all this time off. You don't have this as much days off, not by a long shot. And your pay is way less. So if your dream is to be a teacher, an English teacher, I would recommend you don't do it in Japan. Unless you're just so dead set on living here. Because you're going to find out soon that it's not worth the money that they're giving you. Now, if you're a Japanese person, and you're a Japanese native, and you're used to the work ethic, and the work schedule, and all that stuff, then being a teacher here is not so bad. But English teachers here, and teachers in general in Japan, they get paid about what an English foreigner teacher would get paid. So it's just like a totally different outlook and opinion on what a teacher should be paid and how they should be taken care of. Whether or not you think English teachers in Japan are underappreciated, or you think teachers, in America are overappreciated, that's up for debate, and that's probably a matter of opinion. But this video is going on a little bit long, so that's about it. In a nutshell, not a good job. But if you are like me, or like how I was, you probably won't let that bother you. And you'll probably feel like this is just my opinion, and well, an opinion is not wrong and it's not right, it's just an opinion. And you'll make your mind up on what you want to do. But it's worth hearing other people's experiences, so you have at least some expectation on what's going to happen. So that's it. See you guys later.